The city below glimmered like a field of fireflies, each light a story, a heartbeat, a secret. Illyra's heels clicked softly against the glass floor of the skywalk, a sound that seemed impossibly loud in the crisp night air above the metropolis. She paused, gripping the steel railing, and let her gaze drift across the endless expanse. The wind teased strands of her dark hair across her face, and she brushed them aside, reveling in the solitude. She had designed this skywalk, after all, every curve, every pane of glass, every subtle glow embedded in the structure. She knew how it would feel to walk it alone at night, how the lights of the city would shimmer through the transparent floor, how the cool metal would press against her palms. And yet, tonight, despite the familiarity, there was a tension she couldn't place, a shiver threading down her spine that wasn't from the cold. Halfway across the span, a flicker in the corner of her eye made her pause. A shadow too human to be a trick of the city lights shifted near the far end. Her heartbeat picked up, curiosity pricking her nerves. Who would be here at this hour? Illyra. The voice was low, smooth, familiar yet entirely unknown. She turned slowly. A man stood at the edge of the glass, leaning casually against the railing. His dark coat rustled softly in the wind, and his eyes, sharp and unervingly attentive, held hers. Who are you?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "Darian," he said, stepping forward, but not too close. "I've been watching the skywalk for a while." "You built it, didn't you?" She swallowed, a strange mix of irritation and intrigue curling in her chest. "Yes." "And you've been watching it?" He shrugged, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "Let's just say I appreciate beautiful things, and the people who create them." Something in the way he said it made the air between them thrum. It wasn't just admiration, it was something more dangerous, more intimate. Illyra felt a pull she couldn't explain. She hated feeling vulnerable, yet standing there, suspended between two towers with the city far below, she couldn't deny the spark of electricity that zipped along her nerves. Darian tilted his head, studying her as if weighing some invisible decision. "You don't usually walk here at night," he said. "Is it for peace? Or something else?" She hesitated. Was it something else? Perhaps. She had always loved the night, the way it stripped the city down to its essence, made everything sharper, more honest. Yet there was a thrill in sharing this space, even unknowingly, with someone who seemed to see right through her. "I like the view," she admitted finally, her voice softening. "And the quiet." He stepped closer, and for the first time, the wind seemed to hold its breath. The city lights reflected off his eyes, giving them an almost otherworldly glow. "Quiet can be deceiving," he murmured. "Sometimes it's louder than you think." Illyra shivered, whether from the cold or the weight of his gaze, she couldn't tell. She took a tentative step backward, but he mirrored her, keeping the same measured distance. The tension was electric, palpable, like a current flowing through the glass floor beneath them. For a moment, neither spoke. The city hummed below, oblivious to the charged encounter above. Then Darian's lips curved into a smile that was almost a challenge. "You've built something incredible up here," he said. "But I wonder, do you know how it feels when someone else walks it with you?" The question sent a pulse through her chest she couldn't ignore. Her pulse quickened, her mind spinning with possibilities she didn't dare voice. The night had shifted, no longer just a quiet stroll above the city, but the beginning of something unpredictable, something that could tip her carefully balanced world into chaos. Illyra tightened her grip on the railing, feeling the smooth steel beneath her fingers. And what if I don't want to find out? She asked, her voice teasing, even as her heart betrayed her fear and curiosity. Darian's eyes sparkled with mischief. Then I'll have to convince you, he said softly. And in that instant, with the city sprawling endlessly below and the wind whispering around them, Illyra knew this night was only the beginning. The glass skywalk, once a sanctuary of solitude, had become a stage for something far more dangerous and far more intoxicating than she had ever imagined. The night seemed thicker now, almost tactile, pressing against Illyra as she lingered on the glass skywalk. Darian's presence was magnetic, pulling at her attention in ways she hadn't anticipated. She tried to focus on the city lights, the intricate design of her creation, anything to distract herself, but his gaze, dark and probing, made her pulse uneven. So, he said, taking a slow step closer, you come up here often when the city sleeps. His tone was casual, yet every word seemed carefully measured, teasing, like a whispered secret meant only for her. Illyra tilted her head, studying him. I come when I need space, she replied. When I need to think, or feel free. Feel free, he echoed, the words low, almost a rumble. Interesting choice. The wind swept across the skywalk, carrying with it a subtle chill that contrasted sharply with the warmth radiating from her chest. She shivered slightly, and Darian noticed. He took another step, careful, deliberate, closing just a fraction of the distance between them. You designed this skywalk, he said, his eyes tracing her face, lingering on the curve of her jaw, the glint in her eyes. You know how it feels to stand on glass, high above the city, suspended between the sky and everything below. Illyra swallowed, aware of the tension thickening between them. I know how it feels, she admitted softly, but I didn't design it for people like you. His smile was sly, teasing. People like me. People who disrupt the quiet, she said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. She realized instantly how much she meant it, how his presence alone had unsettled her. Darian's gaze darkened, but there was a spark in it, a mischievous intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. Ah, he said, voice low and intimate. I see. And yet, here I am. For a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them, the glass beneath their feet, the wind around their bodies. Her breath hitched as he stepped closer again, close enough that she could see the faint lines around his eyes, the subtle movement of his lips when he smiled. There was something dangerous about him, something thrilling. Why are you really here? She asked, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. Are you a voyeur? A thrill seeker? Or something else entirely? Darian's lips curved into a half smile. A little of everything, he murmured. But mostly. I'm here for you. Her chest tightened at the confession, though she tried not to show it. She had always been careful, precise, controlling, but here, suspended above the city, her carefully constructed boundaries felt flimsy. You're playing with fire, she said, voice trembling slightly despite her attempt to sound firm. You don't even know me. That's the fun part, he replied, his tone teasing, dangerous. I like discovering things slowly, feeling the tension build, seeing how far I can push. The wind gusted again, tugging at her hair and her coat. Darian's hand brushed lightly against her arm as if by accident, sending a jolt through her that had nothing to do with the cold. Her heartbeat quickened, each pulse a drum echoing through the hollow skywalk. Careful, she whispered, almost to herself. You don't know what you're doing to me. His gaze darkened with intensity, the teasing edge now replaced by a quiet, smoldering force. "Oh, I think I do," he said softly, his voice almost a caress. "And I enjoy every second of it." For a moment, they stood there, suspended over the city, the tension between them almost tangible. Illyra wanted to step back, to regain control, but part of her didn't want to. The thrill, the danger, the pull of his presence, it was intoxicating. "You shouldn't be here," she finally said, trying to regain some semblance of authority, though her voice betrayed her curiosity, her desire. "Shouldn't I?" Darian asked, stepping even closer, so that the faintest warmth of him brushed against her. "Or shouldn't I leave you alone?" Illyra's mind reeled, torn between caution and the magnetic pull of attraction. The city stretched endlessly below, lights shimmering like 1,000 secrets waiting to be uncovered. And in that moment, above it all, the Skywalk became a place of possibility, dangerous, thrilling, and unbearably intimate. She swallowed, meeting his gaze, feeling the unspoken invitation lingering between them. Maybe just for a little while," she admitted. Darian's lips curved into a satisfied, slow smile. "Just a little while," he echoed. And in that shared silence, the glass beneath them seemed to hum with possibility, the night stretching endlessly ahead, promising secrets, desire, and a journey neither of them could have predicted. The glass beneath their feet seemed suddenly more fragile, the city lights below distant and dizzying. Illyra's pulse raced, not entirely from the thrill of Darian's presence. A sudden shiver of unease ran through her. Something about the way the wind shifted, the eerie silence that followed, made her stomach tighten. Before she could voice her suspicion, a loud crack echoed through the walkway. Her breath caught in her throat. She froze, gripping the railing with white-knuckled hands, staring at the far edge of the glass. A panel beneath their feet shivered ominously, the lights beneath it refracting into jagged shards of fractured color. "Stay calm," Darian said, his voice steady but low. He moved beside her, placing a reassuring hand near hers, not touching yet, just close enough to anchor her panic. "We need to move carefully." Her heart thumped as the wind gusted harder, tugging at her coat and her hair. "It's cracking," she whispered, fear threading through every word. Darian's eyes scanned the span, calculating, observing the structure she had designed so intimately. "Only one panel is compromised. If we step carefully, we can make it to the other side," he said. "Follow my lead." Illyra hesitated, the rational part of her mind calculating the risk. And then, against all logic, she stepped forward, following his movements. Each step was a measured balance of trust and terror. The glass hummed beneath them, a warning, a tremor that seemed almost alive. "You designed this," Darian said softly, "but even you can't predict everything." "I didn't expect the wind to be this strong," she admitted, voice tight. She realized with a start that her hand had brushed his as they moved side by side. Heat surged through her, a stark contrast to the chill of the night. She almost recoiled but didn't want to. Halfway across, a louder pop resounded as another panel trembled. Illyra froze. "We're not going to make it," she said, panic rising. "Yes, we are," Darian countered firmly. "Trust me." The urgency in his voice left no room for hesitation. She followed his lead, step by careful step, her heels clacking against the intact glass. The distance between them narrowed, not just because they were walking side by side, but because instinctively, she gravitated toward him, seeking the safety and warmth his presence provided. A sudden gust of wind whipped around them, stronger than before, almost knocking Illyra off balance. Darian caught her by the waist in one swift motion, pulling her close enough that their bodies brushed, the heat of him a jolt against her skin. Her breath hitched, caught between fear and an awareness of his nearness. "Keep moving," he said, his lips close to her ear. The warmth of his breath was intoxicating, sending shivers down her spine. She obeyed, her steps trembling, her heart hammering not just from the danger but from the raw, electric energy radiating from him. They moved as one unit now, instinctively coordinating, their bodies brushing, sparks of contact igniting tension that had been simmering since their first meeting. Finally, they reached a section of reinforced glass solid, unshakable. Illyria stumbled onto it, exhaling in relief. Darian's hand lingered near hers, his touch deliberate, grounding. She turned to him, chest heaving, hair plastered to her face, and suddenly, the fear transformed into something else, a charged, raw awareness of him. "You're incredible," she breathed, her voice husky, not just from the adrenaline. "And you," he replied softly, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face, "aren't just a designer. You're fearless, and maybe a little reckless." Illyria's eyes met his, and the intensity between them deepened. She could feel it now, the pull, the unspoken connection, magnified by the brush with danger. The night, the city lights, the glass skywalk itself, all of it became a backdrop for something far more personal, far more intoxicating. Darian leaned just slightly closer, enough that she felt the warmth of his body, enough that the hairs on her arms stood on end. "That was close," he murmured. "And yet, I've never felt more alive." Illyria swallowed hard, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins, mingling with something hotter, more primal. "Me neither," she admitted, the words slipping out before she could stop them. For a moment, they lingered there, bodies near but not touching fully, hearts synchronized, breaths mingling in the cold night air. The danger had passed, but the tension, the chemistry, the unspoken promise of what could come, that remained, undeniable, electric, and impossible to ignore. The city below glittered like 1,000 unspoken secrets, and above it all, on the fragile glass skywalk, Illyria realized that the line between fear and desire was thinner than she had ever imagined. The city lights stretched endlessly below, sparkling like scattered gems, but Illyria hardly noticed. Every sense was tuned to Darian, the warmth radiating from him, the subtle scent that seemed to linger in the air even when the wind swept past, the steady beat of his heart that somehow synchronized with her own. They had made it across the dangerous section of the skywalk, but instead of relief, a new tension had settled, thick and electric, between them. "Let's step off the main span," Darian said softly, his voice almost a whisper carried by the night wind. "There's a section that's more private. Less exposed. I want to talk, without the city eavesdropping." Illyria hesitated for only a heartbeat before following him. She had always loved solitude, but something about this stranger made her crave it in a different way, like a stage cleared for something dangerous and intoxicating. He led her down a narrow corridor of glass and steel, lit only by soft recessed lights that glowed like embers in the dark. They stopped at a small alcove, a hidden nook jutting slightly from the main walkway. From here, the view of the city was breathtaking, framed by the steel beams of the towers. The wind was gentler here, wrapping around them like a protective cocoon. Illyria leaned against the glass railing, suddenly aware of how exposed they both were, yet paradoxically shielded. Darian stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body, the faint brush of his coat against hers. "It's rare to find a place like this," he murmured. "Private, quiet, perfect for a confession." Her heart skipped. "A confession?" she asked, the word tasting dangerous on her tongue. "Yes," he said, eyes dark and intense. "I don't usually reveal much. But there's something about you, something I can't ignore." Illyra swallowed hard, feeling the warmth creep up her neck. The tension between them was unbearable, pulling at her with an almost magnetic force. She tried to focus, tried to anchor herself in reason, but the electricity of the night and the closeness of Darien made it impossible. "What are you feeling?" she asked, voice barely audible. She wasn't sure if she wanted him to answer. "Curiosity," he admitted, voice low, deliberate. "Desire. Fascination. And, perhaps danger. The kind that makes it impossible to turn away." The words hit her in a way that made her knees weak. She wanted to pull back, to maintain control, but her body betrayed her. Her pulse raced, a hot, insistent thrum that seemed to echo in her ears. She stepped slightly closer, almost unconsciously, until the space between them was charged, every inch humming with tension. Darien tilted his head, studying her face. "You're not afraid," he observed softly. "You're alive. I can see it. Every careful step you take, every subtle glance, everything you're trying to hide beneath your composure, it's all there." Illyra's breath hitched. "And you," she whispered, almost daring him. "What are you hiding?" A slow smile curved his lips. "Maybe I'm hiding nothing, or maybe everything," he murmured. Then, gently, he lifted a hand, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. The touch lingered, feather-light, and sent a jolt through her that had nothing to do with fear. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, and for a moment, the world beyond the alcove disappeared, the city, the glass, the danger, all fading into insignificance. There was only Darien, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath, and the raw, unspoken connection that crackled between them. "Illyra," he whispered, his lips almost grazing hers, "I want to know you, in every sense. Your mind, your fears, your desires. I want to be here when you let go of control, when you let yourself feel everything." Her knees threatened to give way, but she didn't step back. Instead, she leaned slightly into him, the tiniest shift that spoke volumes. Their eyes locked, and the air between them shimmered with anticipation. She could feel it, the dangerous pull, the intoxicating tension, the promise of surrender and discovery that stretched out before them like the city lights below. The wind whispered around them, carrying their breaths and unspoken words, wrapping the alcove in intimacy. Illyra realized she was no longer just curious about him, she was captivated, enthralled by the unknown, drawn into a gravity she had no desire to resist. And in that quiet, suspended moment, high above the city, the glass skywalk became more than architecture. It became a stage for something raw, intimate, and dangerously beautiful, something neither of them could have predicted, but both knew they were powerless to resist. The alcove felt like a sanctuary, the city lights a soft glow below them, but Illyra couldn't shake the sense that the night was holding its breath. Darien's presence was intoxicating, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him, hear the subtle rhythm of his breathing, but there was something else now, a tension that wasn't entirely their own. He stepped just a little closer, the distance between them charged with electricity. "You're not afraid of me," he murmured, eyes dark, intense. "But I sense there's more behind those eyes. Secrets." Illyra's breath caught. He always knew too much, even when she said nothing. "Maybe," she admitted softly, her voice barely more than a whisper. "But some secrets aren't meant to be shared, not yet." Darien's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. I understand, he said. But trust is part of the thrill, isn't it? Taking the risk, letting someone in, his words hung in the air, teasing, intimate, and irresistible. She swallowed hard, feeling heat rise in her chest. It wasn't just desire anymore, it was curiosity, the lure of vulnerability. And though she had always prided herself on control, the way he looked at her, the way he moved closer, made it impossible to maintain. I trust you, she admitted finally, the words dangerous and liberating at once. But that doesn't mean I'm giving everything away. Darian's lips curved into a slow, knowing smile. Good, he murmured. I wouldn't want it any other way. For a moment, they simply stood there, suspended above the city, their bodies so close that every subtle movement sent shivers through them. The wind whispered through the alcove, carrying the scent of the night, of steel, of possibility. Illyra's pulse thrummed with anticipation, every nerve alive, every thought sharpened by his presence. Then, almost as if summoned by the tension, a faint but unmistakable sound of scraping metal echoed from the far end of the skywalk. Both of them froze. The wind carried it, sharp and deliberate, cutting through the quiet night. Darian's expression hardened. We're not alone, he said quietly, his voice low but commanding. Stay close. Illyra's stomach tightened, a mix of fear and adrenaline spiking through her veins. Her hand instinctively brushed against his as he moved to shield her, and the contact was electric, sending a heat through her body that contrasted sharply with the chill of the night air. The sound grew louder, deliberate footfalls against the glass floor. Whoever it was, they were coming fast, and the shadow of the intruder stretched across the walkway like a dark stain against the city lights. Stay behind me, Darian whispered, his hand brushing hers again, not by accident this time, but guiding, protective. Illyra's breath hitched at the nearness, the warmth, the undeniable tension that had been simmering between them since their first encounter. The intruder emerged into view, a figure cloaked in dark clothing, face obscured, moving with intent. Darian's jaw tightened. I didn't expect company, he muttered, almost under his breath, but there was an edge of warning in his tone. Illyra's heart raced, but she didn't step back. Instead, she stayed close, her body brushing against his, the heat between them mingling with the adrenaline coursing through their veins. Something about being near him in this moment, facing danger together, made her feel alive in ways she had never imagined. The figure stopped a few feet away, and Darian's stance shifted, alert, ready, protective. Who are you? He demanded. There was no immediate answer, just the whisper of the wind and the distant hum of the city. The tension stretched, thick and suffocating, and in that suspended moment, Illyra realized how fragile the boundary between fear and desire could be. Her hand pressed lightly against Darian's chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. We can face this, she whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. Together. He looked down at her, eyes dark with intensity and something softer, almost tender. Together, he echoed. And in that charged, suspended instant, with the city sprawled below them and danger looming above, Illyra knew they had crossed an invisible line. Their connection was no longer just curiosity, desire, or attraction, it had become trust forged in adrenaline, intimacy born from vulnerability, and a flame neither could extinguish. The intruder moved closer, and Darian's hand found hers, gripping gently but firmly. The night held them, the wind wrapped around them, and the glass skywalk became more than just a structure, it became a crucible of tension, of secrets revealed, and of the intoxicating closeness between two people teetering on the edge of danger and desire. The intruder's figure loomed larger under the city lights, the sound of their deliberate footsteps echoing against the glass and steel of the skywalk. Illyra's pulse thundered in her ears, but her hand in Darian's gave her a strange sense of security, a tether amid the growing tension. He was a steady presence, taut with readiness, and she felt the magnetic pull of him more acutely than ever. "Stay close," Darian whispered, his voice a low rumble against her ear. She pressed herself a little closer, feeling the warmth radiating from his body, every heartbeat syncing with her own. There was a dangerous intimacy in it, a current that made her breath hitch even as her mind raced with the threat before them. The figure stopped just a few feet away, shrouded in shadow, posture deliberate, movements cautious but purposeful. Darian stepped in front of her, protective and commanding, his eyes narrowing as he assessed the intruder. "Who sent you?" he demanded. "What do you want?" The intruder didn't answer immediately. Instead, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in stance suggested anticipation, as if they were calculating the right moment to strike. The tension thickened, pressing in on them like the weight of the city below. Illyra's hand tightened instinctively around his. "Be careful," she murmured, but her voice held a mix of fear and unbidden excitement. Her chest warmed not just from adrenaline, but from the nearness of him, from the way the crisis made their connection undeniable. The shadow moved suddenly, swift and precise. Darian's response was instantaneous, a calculated pivot, positioning himself between Illyra and the figure, guiding her gently but firmly to a safer section of reinforced glass. Their bodies brushed in the motion, a fleeting contact that sent sparks of heat up her spine. "You're tense," he murmured, eyes locking with hers briefly, his voice a mixture of reassurance and smoldering intensity. "Focus. We can handle this." Her breath caught. She wanted to protest, to draw back, but the magnetic pull of him kept her rooted. His confidence was infectious, and for the first time, she felt the wild thrill of surrendering just a little to someone she barely knew. The intruder lunged suddenly, the movement fluid and precise. Darian reacted instantly, his body a protective shield. He intercepted the attack, deflecting it with skill that made Illyra's stomach twist with a mix of admiration and fear. The sound of glass scraping and metal clashing echoed through the skywalk, punctuated by the gusting wind. "Stay behind me," he commanded. His hand found hers again, this time gripping tightly. The contact was grounding, a lifeline amid the chaos. Illyra felt her heart hammer against her ribs, every nerve alive, her senses sharpened to the point of aching. For a tense moment, it was just the three of them, suspended above the glittering city, a collision of danger and raw, intoxicating proximity. Then, Darian's skillful maneuvering disarmed the intruder, forcing them back a step. Illyra realized she was holding her breath, caught in the intensity of both the threat and the man before her. "You okay?" he asked, voice low, almost tender despite the tension. She nodded, though she could barely articulate her racing thoughts. Her body still hummed from the adrenaline, but there was another undercurrent now, something hot, thrilling, and dangerously magnetic. Darian's eyes lingered on her, dark and penetrating. "You were incredible," he said softly. "Calm, precise, fearless, even under pressure." Illyra felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I was just following your lead," she admitted, voice trembling with a mixture of awe and desire. "I had to trust you." "And you did," he murmured, stepping closer, so close that she could feel the warmth of his breath against her skin. His hand brushed lightly against hers again, the slightest touch enough to ignite a fire within her. "And that's what matters most." For a moment, the threat seemed to fade, leaving only the two of them on the glass skywalk, hearts still racing, breaths mingling in the cool night air. The danger had forged something between them: trust, intimacy, and an undeniable tension that hummed with desire. Illyra realized, with a thrill and a shiver, that she had never felt so alive. The night, the city, the glass skywalk, they were no longer just a backdrop. They had become the crucible in which something raw, powerful, and unspoken had ignited. Darian leaned just slightly closer, and she felt the magnetic pull, irresistible, undeniable. The city below shimmered, oblivious to the connection sparking above it. The danger had passed, or at least receded, but the tension, the intimacy, and the heat between them remained, palpable, dangerous, and thrilling. And in that suspended moment, high above the sleeping city, Illyra knew they had crossed a line. Not back to the ordinary, not to the safety of control, but forward, into something uncharted, intoxicating, and impossible to resist. The city sprawled beneath them like a river of lights, endless and hypnotic, yet Illyra barely noticed it anymore. The adrenaline from the confrontation still lingered, a pulse that mingled with something far older, far more insistent: desire. The danger had passed, or at least retreated, but it had left behind a spark, a connection she could neither deny nor resist. Darian stood close, his presence a tether, a current she felt in every nerve. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering against her cheek just long enough to make her heart stutter. The wind whispered around them, carrying with it a charged intimacy that seemed to suspend time itself. "You were incredible tonight," he murmured, voice low, almost reverent. "Fearless. Strong. Beautiful." Illyra's chest rose and fell rapidly. I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted, voice barely more than a breath. Her hand sought his, fingers intertwining with his in a firm, electric grasp. The contact was grounding yet intoxicating, a tether in the storm and a spark in the dark. Darian's eyes darkened with intensity, tracing the lines of her face as though committing every detail to memory. "No," he said softly, leaning closer, "you were incredible because you are you. And I want to explore all of that. Every fear, every thrill, every desire." Her pulse spiked, heat coiling low in her stomach. She had always been cautious, always in control, but tonight, above the city, on the fragile glass that had carried them through danger, she wanted to let go. She wanted the surrender that came with trust, with connection, with the tantalizing possibility of something forbidden and irresistible. Without thinking, she stepped closer, closing the last space between them. Their breaths mingled, the night around them charged with possibility. The city lights reflected in their eyes, casting them in a halo of glittering gold and electric blue. "Are you sure?" she whispered, voice trembling with anticipation and a hint of fear. He smiled, slow, knowing, and placed a hand against her waist, pulling her closer. "Absolutely," he said, voice low and commanding, yet gentle. "I've never been more certain of anything." The first kiss was tentative, a whisper of lips that sent shivers down her spine, igniting every nerve. Then, as if pulled by the same unrelenting force, it deepened, urgent and desperate, a collision of need and emotion that had been building since their first encounter. Illyra's hands moved instinctively, tracing the contours of his shoulders, feeling the warmth of him, the strength that had protected her moments ago. The glass skywalk beneath them seemed to hum with energy, every pain resonating with the intensity of the moment. The wind wrapped around them like a silk curtain, carrying their shared breaths and the electric charge of their closeness. Darian's hands moved along her back, drawing her impossibly close, and for the first time, Illyra surrendered completely. The careful, controlled woman she had always been dissolved into the night, leaving only desire, connection, and the raw thrill of being completely seen and unguarded. They broke apart just enough to gaze into each other's eyes, foreheads resting together, breaths mingling. "I don't want this night to end," she whispered, the words trembling with honesty and longing. "Neither do I," he replied, brushing a gentle kiss across her temple, then down her cheek. "But endings are just beginnings in disguise. And I have a feeling this is only the start of something extraordinary." Illyra smiled, a soft, breathless curve of lips that mirrored the exhilaration coursing through her veins. The city below glittered, oblivious to the intimacy unfolding above it, but that didn't matter. Up here, on the fragile glass skywalk suspended between towers and sky, they had carved their own universe, one charged with desire, trust, and unspoken promises. The danger of earlier had transformed into a shared triumph, the tension into a deep connection, the thrill of the night into an undeniable spark that would not be extinguished. They stood together, bodies pressed close, hearts racing in tandem, and for a long moment, they simply existed in that suspended space, suspended in time, suspended in a perfect, intoxicating closeness. Finally, Darian brushed his lips against hers once more, softer this time, lingering, as if imprinting the moment onto both of them. "We'll face whatever comes next," he murmured. "Together." Illyra's hands rested on his chest, feeling the steady beat beneath her palms. "Together," she echoed, the word a promise, a surrender, and an invitation all at once. The wind whispered around them, the city sparkled below, and the glass skywalk, silent witness to their danger, desire, and discovery, stood as a bridge not only between towers but between hearts, a place where trust had been forged, intimacy awakened, and passion ignited. And as they lingered in each other's arms, high above the sleeping city, Illyra knew one undeniable truth: some nights changed everything. Some nights, suspended between danger and desire, left an imprint that could never be erased. Above it all, on the glass skywalk, their world had been forever transformed.